Monaco's qualifying session was something else, unpredictable from the beginning to the very last lap. With the track constantly and rapidly evolving, the last man over the line would have the best chance at taking pole position. Fortunately, as is typical in Monaco, there weren't any major incidents that disrupted proceedings, so we got a straight shootout between the top 10 drivers. The big surprise was Esteban Ocon, who initially took provisional pole, then Leclerc snatched it away from him. That is until Fernando Alonso finished wringing the neck out of his Aston Martin. That was it, right? He had it in the bag. Verstappen was a 10th down in the first sector, a 10th down in the middle sector. Surely he's out of it now. I mean, there's simply no way he makes up 3/10 in the final sector.
Verstappen is down. Wow. He's not the car, but is it fast enough as Verstappen crosses the line to take pole position?
When I saw this, I had to double take. Did he really just do that? The guy left absolutely no margin for error in turn 15, was wall riding on the exit of turn 16, whatever the hell this was. I mean, I don't think I've ever seen anyone as committed as this through that final sequence of corners in Monaco. Now, I've seen the classic argument that's been used against every single one of the all-time greats in F1 history. It's just the car doing all the work. As if to water down the brilliance of driver skill every time they do something incomprehensible. Seen it with Schumacher, seen it with Vettel, seen it with Hamilton, and now Verstappen is getting that same treatment. It's unfortunate some can't appreciate greatness when it's right there before their very eyes. And I am by no means a Max fan. In fact, I've had my fair share of criticisms of him in the past. But there's one thing that I've never once questioned about the man, and that is his unbelievable talent behind the wheel. Since the early days of his Red Bull career, he's slowly refined himself into an absolute machine. Whether you like him or not is irrelevant when it comes to evaluating the level he's performing at currently. This last win saw him surpass Sebastian Vettel for the most victories as a Red Bull driver. And although Seb does have a higher win rate percentage with 33% compared to Max's 27%, let's not forget that Max only got a championship capable car 5 years into his stint at Red Bull. On the other hand, a majority of Vettel's Red Bulls were either the best or one of the best cars on the grid. Since the start of 2022, Verstappen has won 70% of all races he's competed in. That is 19 wins out of the last 27 Grand Prix and counting. For context, Vettel's highest percentage over a 27 race span during the height of his dominance was 63%. Both drivers have experienced similar levels of success at a very young age, and at one point, I couldn't really see anybody beating Sebastian. At the peak of their powers, he and Red Bull seemed unbeatable, and it's the same right now with Max. But the difference in the Dutchman's case is that it feels like he's only just getting into his stride. With the form he's in right now, I genuinely believe he can win 9 or more races in a row. No matter where he starts, it's always a case of when he'll take the lead and not if. Occasionally, he does have the odd off weekend, like in Baku for example, but 9 times out of 10, you will not see him drop the ball. That's a different level of consistency, one that will demoralize any driver, but especially the guy on the other side of the garage. That's right, I'm looking at you, Checo. The Red Bull second seat has always been known to be a bit of a poison chalice. For young drivers like Gasly and Albon, it almost ended their careers. Perez, unsurprisingly, as the most experienced of the lot, has been the best wingman so far. But even then, he's nowhere near competing with his teammate regularly enough, such that he'd actually put up a title challenge. He had a prime opportunity to win in Miami, with Verstappen starting down in P9. But Max is now so good at extracting pace from Pirellis while simultaneously extending their life almost endlessly that not even the quote-unquote tyre management king himself can do anything to match him. And might I just say this, I love Checo dearly. I became very fond of his story when I made a video a few years back about how he made it to Formula 1. I also admire the way he handled the situation with Racing Point in 2020 and how he proved he was the driver Red Bull needed in 2021. However, the media need to stop constantly pushing certain narratives, such as, is this the year Perez will beat Verstappen? Or the whole king of the streets tag they use whenever he wins on a street circuit. With all due respect, and in my uninformed opinion, Checo is a great driver, especially when it comes to races like Monaco, Jeddah, and Baku. On his day, he will take advantage of others' misfortunes and often emerge victorious in those situations. Overall, he's a solid driver across the board and reliable when you need him to deliver. But he just ain't Max Verstappen. There's levels to this game, and unfortunately, the Dutchman is playing in a completely different realm. It's one thing to be great now and again. Throughout Max's early career, he'd often show mere flashes of legendary potential. I'm talking the likes of Spain and Brazil 2016, China and Malaysia 2017, Mexico and Qatar in 2018. But he would often still be quite prone to making silly mistakes, which gave the impression that he wasn't ready to compete for championships. But the season in which I'd say I saw the most growth was 2019. 3 wins and only finishing outside the top 5 all season really just goes to show his consistency that year was off the charts, and it hasn't fallen off since. Now, as for the question whether this is his prime or not, it's very subjective. Usually in sports, we see athletes hit their prime around late 20s to early and sometimes mid 30s, normally starting their career at around 22-23, progressing through the ranks and honing their craft, to eventually become as close to a complete package as possible by 29-30. In Formula 1, machinery obviously plays a big factor in whether or not you have the opportunity to fight for titles, but it's extremely rare to see a young gun compete against the big dogs from day one. That being said, what matters here is not the age, but the preparation and experience. And this is very much the case for Verstappen. Coming into F1 at 17 years of age has really done a lot for his progression. He had time to build himself in a nice environment at Toro Rosso, before proving he was good enough to inherit a seat at the senior team. He showed they didn't make a mistake by winning the Spanish Grand Prix in his first race as a Red Bull driver. Since then, he's only built upon his strengths and strengthened his shortcomings, to the point where now he's 25 and in the form of his life, which, when you think about it, is insane. He's a fully fledged veteran with potentially another 10 years left in him. And it begs the question, just how far can he go? Will we see the Alonso Hamilton kind of longevity? Will this be short-lived? Will the Red Bull still be the fastest car in the next few years? Only time will tell. Another thing, to me, it's pretty clear that this is the most connected Verstappen has been to a Formula 1 car in his career. Over the years, we've seen him have to make the best out of cars that his teammates have typically found difficult to drive. Due to his innate feel and natural talent, he's often been able to extract the most from any car he's given. But this RB19 is something special. I'm no aerodynamicist, so I won't sit here and pretend like I knew what I was looking at when the flaw was exposed in Q1. But based on what others have been saying, it's the work of a genius. This being an evolution of the RB18 only goes to show how strong a platform they had to build upon ever since the regulations came into effect. They haven't made any sweeping concept changes like other teams have, they've simply built upon what they already started with last year's car. In terms of how long it'll take for others to close the gap is a question that's well and truly unknown. At the moment, the likes of Ferrari, Aston, Mercedes, and even Alpine now have the potential to cause an upset in qualifying. But when it comes to having one hell of a race car, none of them come close to the Red Bull. They comfortably have over a second a lap in hand over their competitors, which is going to be tough to match under the budget cap. But let's wait and see. 2019 wasn't the most entertaining during the first half of the season, yet in the second half, we had 5 different winners in 9 races. Who's to say we won't see something similar? With the confidence that Max is carrying at the moment and how in tune he is with this year's car, I'd say this is him at the peak of his powers. It's just a shame we can't see other great drivers who have the capacity to take the fight to him in similarly matched machinery. But hey, that's how it goes in Formula 1. One can acknowledge the great engineering behind a fantastic machine without diminishing the incredible skills brought by the driver. It's one thing to have a quick car. It's a different thing to extract the most out of it. Ask yourself, how many other drivers on the current grid would be performing better than Verstappen if they had the RB19? Or better yet, which drivers would be beating him head to head as his teammate in that very car? To be honest, there's only 2 that come to mind for me, but I'm curious to know what you think, so leave your potential candidates down in the comment section below. Even with talents like these 2 though, Verstappen has embedded himself so well into this team over the years that he would be extremely difficult to overcome. I'm inclined to believe that their dominance will last until at least 2026, given they've shown no signs of weakness. Gone are the days when Red Bull were newbies to Formula 1. They are a well-oiled machine at the moment, with the best driver on the grid, and it's up to the others to bring on the challenge. I hope you all enjoyed. Let me know whether or not you think Verstappen is hitting his prime down in the comment section below. Be sure to drop a like on the video, share it around with friends, and subscribe to the channel with bell notifications to keep up to date with my latest videos in the future. And as always, I'll see you in the next one.